The Secret of the Scribe's Ink. Livia Bianchi was an archivist in Florence, living a quiet life among the millions of documents housed in the Archivio di Stato. Her passion wasn't history itself, but the paper, the parchment, the watermarks, and the subtle, forgotten science of ancient inks. At 28, she had a quiet reputation as the city's foremost expert in Renaissance calligraphy and pigment decay. One cold evening, while restoring a ledger from the Medici Bank dating to 1460, Livia noticed an anomaly. The ink used for a series of cryptic, margin notations, not the official entries, was unlike anything she had ever catalogued. It wasn't iron gall, carbon black, or cinnabar. It seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, casting a faint, cool shadow on the page itself. Using a custom UV scanner, Livia analyzed the ink. The results were impossible. The elemental composition registered trace amounts of pure lunar silicate and crystallized petrified lightning. The ink was scientifically magical. Livia spent weeks cross-referencing the ledger's marginalia. The notes, scrawled by a scribe known only as Elias, formed a fragmented journal detailing a society known as the Custodians of the Spiral. Elias wasn't merely documenting currency. He was chronicling a secret, magical war fought across Italy centuries ago, a war for control of sources of raw resonance. The final and most haunting entry was a small map of Italy drawn in the same luminous, impossible ink. 3 points were circled, marked by a single, stylized symbol, a winding spiral. The locations were a specific island off the coast of Sicily, a deep, submerged vault beneath Venice, a ruined Roman aqueduct near the Apennine Mountains. Livia realized Elias's map was not just historical lore, it was a present danger. The luminous ink was fading fast, meaning the powerful magical nodes Elias had marked, the true sources of raw resonance, were weakening, risking an unpredictable collapse of the magical balance Elias had struggled to maintain. Driven by a scholarly need to complete the record and a growing fear of the unknown consequences, Livia packed a small bag. Her first stop, the island off Sicily. Livia flew south to Sicily, then took a ferry toward the volatile Aeolian Islands. Elias's map pointed specifically to the active volcano, Stromboli. The spiral symbol was drawn right over its smoking crater. She arrived in the village of Stromboli, a huddle of white houses clinging to the black, volcanic sand. Posing as a volcanologist, Livia secured passage with a local fisherman named Marco who specialized in nighttime trips to watch the lava flows. Under the deep Mediterranean sky, they anchored near the black sand beach. Livia put on her hiking gear, equipped with a specialized compass she'd built that responded to the unique lunar silicate in Elias's ink. The compass needle, a fine sliver of platinum, pulled violently toward the crater. The ascent was brutal. The volcanic soil was loose and the air crackled with sulfur. As she neared the summit, the air grew thick with a sense of profound, ancient exhaustion. The raw resonance here was the power of deep earth memory, the chaotic, primal energy of creation and destruction. Livia found the precise spot marked by the spiral, a vent near the crater rim. It wasn't spewing lava, but instead, it pulsed with a faint, cyclical blue light. This was the node. However, she wasn't alone. Waiting near the vent was a man in a modern, tactical suit, his face obscured by a visor. He carried a device that looked like a sleek, obsidian cage. This was a resonance drain, designed to harvest the node's energy. The archivist, the man's voice was distorted by the visor. I should have known Elias's obsession with the ink would lure a new devotee. You're too late. Who are you? Livia demanded, her heart hammering against her ribs. A modern custodian, he sneered, activating the drain. Elias was weak. He believed in balance. We believe in control. As the drain whirred to life, the blue light of the Earth memory node intensified, screaming silently as its energy was ripped away. Livia, though unarmed, remembered Elias's final note. The nodes only respond to their opposite element. She had no opposite element, but she had the ink. In a moment of pure desperation, she scraped a tiny flake of Elias's magical ink from the map and tossed it into the vent. The lunar silicate immediately reacted with the volcanic heat. A blinding flash erupted, and the node didn't explode, it swapped its nature. The chaotic Earth memory vanished, replaced by a surge of pure, logical stasis. The obsidian drain froze solid, its delicate mechanisms locking up entirely. The man in the tactical suit, stunned by the instantaneous magical paralysis of his equipment, staggered back. "You can't harvest what you can't contain," Livia shouted, grabbing the frozen drain. She fled down the mountain, leaving the frustrated, control-obsessed custodians stranded on the smoking summit. The Stromboli node was safe for now. But Livia knew the logical stasis would fade, and the primal chaos would return. She had bought time, but she hadn't found the key to long-term stability. That, she believed, lay in Venice. The second location, marked by a spiral beneath the water, led Livia to Venice. The node was located precisely beneath the busiest section of the Grand Canal, a place of ceaseless, fluid movement. Using the frozen obsidian drain as a makeshift anchor for her diving equipment, Livia knew mechanics. After all, she slipped into the murky, cold water. Her resonance goggles, adapted to filter the salinity, showed the node as a faint, throbbing blue light deep in the mud. This was the node of fluidity and change, the power of water, tides, and human movement. She swam toward the light, navigating the submerged ruins of ancient foundations. She realized the node wasn't contained in a vault. It was housed within a vast, subterranean structure of centuries old, magically treated Murano glass. It was a labyrinth designed to continuously fracture and reform the raw magical energy, preventing it from coalescing into uncontrolled forms. As Livia reached the main chamber, the light grew blinding. She saw why. A competing group of custodians, this time a trio dressed in elegant black diving gear, was trying to bypass the glass labyrinth entirely, using sonic disruptors to shatter the container and release the energy for their own purposes. They wanted the magical power of unrestricted motion. Livia recognized the woman leading the trio, Signora Fiora, a renowned restorer of antique glass from Murano, known for her sharp business practices and colder-than-water demeanor. "A simple archivist should stay on dry land, Miss Bianchi," Fiora's voice crackled over the bone conduction comms. "This node belongs to those who understand its true, liquid value. We will shatter the old ways and let the power flow freely." As Fiora activated the sonic disruptors, the ancient glass began to sing a high, dangerous pitch. Cracks spiderwebbed across the magical structure. Livia knew that if the glass shattered, the raw resonance of fluidity would rush out, causing uncontrollable magical ripples, tidal waves in the lagoon, impossible shifts in wind, and potentially dissolving the foundations of Venice itself. She fumbled in her pocket for a small, preserved sliver of Medici wax seal she had brought from the archives, a piece of history representing centuries of meticulous, unyielding bureaucracy. Facing the sonic disruption, Livia placed the tiny piece of wax against a large, load-bearing glass pane. The wax, infused with the magical energy of tedious, relentless paperwork and ordered records, instantly reacted with the node's fluidity. Instead of shattering, the glass labyrinth began to solidify. The constantly flowing, reshaping energy of the node was forced into rigid, complex geometric patterns within the glass, locking the fluidity in a state of beautiful, impenetrable complexity. The glass stopped singing. Fiora's sonic disruptors failed, their high-frequency waves simply bouncing off the newly solidified glass. Enraged, Fiora signaled her team to pursue Livia, but the magical geometry had begun to reshape the internal currents of the chamber, forming rapid, unpredictable whirlpools. Livia was propelled out into the canal, coughing and spitting murky water, but safe. She had neutralized the threat, turning the chaotic fluidity into ordered geometry, but she knew the stasis and the geometry were temporary solutions. The final node was the key. The last spiral was marked near a ruined Roman aqueduct in the rugged Apennine Mountains, a place representing both human ingenuity and decay. Livia hiked for days, the air thinning as she ascended. When she found the location, it was breathtaking, a massive, half-collapsed aqueduct arch, spanning a deep ravine. The final node pulsed here with the strange, echoing power of doubt and belief, the collective magical energy generated by centuries of human uncertainty and faith. This time, the challenge was different. There were no armed custodians. Instead, the area was saturated with magical energy that induced profound uncertainty. As Livia walked, she was assailed by self-doubt. The whole thing is pointless. The ink is just spoiled carbon. You should have stayed in. The note of doubt and belief manifested as shimmering, invisible waves that amplified her deepest fears. The single arch of the aqueduct looked unstable, and her mind screamed that crossing it was certain death. She saw the node, a cluster of crystals embedded in the keystone of the central arch, radiating pulses of question marks. Livia knew that if the node destabilized, the sheer psychological chaos would spill out across Italy, resulting in mass paranoia, societal breakdown, and an end to rational thought. She had brought only one final item of significance, a small, rough-cut chunk of Carrara marble, the stone of Michelangelo and Bernini, representing centuries of artistic vision and creative will. The only way to reach the node was to cross the arch. Each step was an agonizing battle against her own mind, telling her the stone would crumble beneath her feet. She closed her eyes, clutching the marble. Instead of fighting the doubt, she remembered Elias's cryptic first note, hidden beneath the Medici seal. Only the act of creation can mend the fracture of belief. Livia stopped halfway across the terrifying span. She took a deep breath, focusing all her knowledge of pigment and history, and began to work. She pulled out a small scraping tool and, using the Carrara marble as her canvas, began to gently chip away at the stone, shaping it. She wasn't building, she was releasing the shape that was already there. She carved a small, smooth, perfect spiral, the symbol of the custodians of the spiral. As the final shape emerged, the power of artistic vision clashed with the note of doubt. The two energies didn't cancel out, they merged. The crystals stopped emitting question marks and began to hum with a calm, steady resonance of certainty. The massive wave of doubt lifted instantly. Livia stood on the arch, now feeling perfectly stable and secure. The node was finally stabilized. Livia returned to Florence, hailed by no one but quietly satisfied. She placed the Carrara marble spiral on her desk, beside the now inert obsidian drain and the solidified piece of Murano glass. The three temporary fixes she had introduced, logical stasis at Stromboli, geometric order in Venice, and artistic certainty in the Apennines, had synchronized. They were now channeling the raw resonance from the nodes into a controlled, balanced cycle, exactly as Elias and the original custodians had intended. Ethelgard's problem was one of too much control. Italy's was one of dangerously free magic. Livia, the archivist, had solved both by applying the one thing the modern custodians and ancient mechanists alike had forgotten, the profound power of history and art. She didn't tell the world of her quest. Instead, Livia returned to her archive. But her work was no longer mundane. Using the last remnants of Elias's ink and the wisdom of the nodes, she began cataloging the world's documents not by date, but by the magical resonance they possessed, charting the true, magical history of Italy. Ready to act again should the balance ever threaten to shatter. She had become the new, quiet, and necessary custodian of the spiral. If you like this story, like the video and subscribe the channel. Thank you.